Hello and welcome to this workshop called Meant for More, How to Live from Your Higher Self. In case we haven't met before, my name is Katrine Horn and I'm a life coach, and I help my clients do exactly what it is we're going to talk about today. So welcome. Feel free to use the chat. If you are watching the replay, welcome. You can always just comment in the comment box below on YouTube. If you stay till the end and you're here live, I'm going to share about my shattered dreams and share a few pics with you. So feel free to stay and feel free you also to share what you are dreaming about. That would be gorgeous. So let's get started. What did I want to say? Yeah, I want you to, well, I really don't want you to be triggered by this term that I use, which is your higher self. Now, when I say that, it's not about being anything to do with perfection. It's not this elitist thing of having to live up to or being perfect. That is not what I'm talking about. Your higher self is something entirely different. I think it is when we are being our highest self, we are sort of tapping into our full potential. And to me, life is really about tapping into that potential and being all of who it is we can be without the pressure, without the proving, and without the living up to and the expectations and all of that. That is not at all what I'm talking about. So having said that, we're here to talk about that more and your higher self. If you don't know what that more is, we're going to talk about why that is, why you don't know it, and how you can start getting clearer on that. So you're in the right place. And also, you are in the right place if you know exactly what that more is, but you're not quite there yet. I hope to be providing really useful, tangible things that you can start doing today that will have you tap into that higher self and that more, what you are meant for. So some people call that purpose, some people call that dreams. I think it's a little bit about the meaning of life and why we're here. So feel free to put into that whatever it is that feels right for you, whatever it is that speaks the loudest to you. This is meant as inspiration, and it is also meant for this inspiration to get you to take some kind of action, because information is not transformation. And if you're here, I suspect it's because you want things to change. You want to start to be moving towards that more. You want to be living more often from your highest self. So I've got a few items on our program today. First of all, identity. We're going to talk about the ego, which is the part of you that is fearful, that is keeping all the scores and who keeps reminding you of your past and why it is you can't do this or that. And then we're going to also talk about the part of you, that higher self. That's the part of you who is solution oriented. So it's got that positivity and that possibility mindset. It doesn't see your problems the way your ego sees them. So you've got both of these identities as part of you, and that is perfectly okay. Nothing wrong there. Then we're going to talk about normalising, because everything in your life right now is made up of what you have normalised. So you are telling yourself, I'm this kind of person, I make this kind of money, I live in this kind of environment, I associate with this kind of person. So that is what you have made normal. And that is your current sort of set point. So if you want to change, this is also an area we can dive into. Also, I'm going to talk about the more, obviously, which is what I call growth. You might call it healing. It's really the things you have to move through, or that you want to choose to move through, to get to your next level. So I like to think about it as evolution or growth, or healing, and you will understand why I talk about healing later. Fourth point, we're going to dive into the what, how, who, and why in the right order. And at the end, I'm going to give you a few tips on how to cultivate that higher self. And as I said, if you stay to the end, I'll share a few picks with you. So let's talk about identity. You've got the ego and you've got your higher self as part of who you are. Sometimes we identify more with the ego, and sometimes we get to identify more with the higher self. The ego is fueled by outside validation, meaning it needs other people's input to feel value, to feel love, to feel appreciation, right? To feel good. It needs something from the outside, either circumstances or objects or people, to feed it. The higher self doesn't need that. It is it generates its own self-value. It creates a value from the inside. So it doesn't depend on outside circumstances. And can I just sort of talk about, well, if you know me, you know that at one point in my life, I was a school teacher. I was also at one point in my life a musician. And in both of these situations, I heavily relied on outside validation. Like when I was a musician, I relied on my audience to tell me, you played so beautifully, Katrina. I mean, it was so gorgeous. We enjoyed it so much. And then I could feel good. Right. And when I was a teacher, I relied on the parents to tell me how much their children adored my lessons. And I relied on my principal to tell me how well organized I was and how fabulous I was. So you rely on other people to tell you how good you are. And that can sort of be okay as long as people tell you that you are valuable. But when they start criticizing you, it suddenly doesn't feel very good because your value has just been taken away. So I'm pausing a little bit here for you to take it in, that this idea of sourcing your value from the outside, we do that in the most subtle ways. I gave two examples that are sort of very, very visible. But really, if we go inside and think about it, we all sometimes rely, perhaps not so much, but we all like when other people like us, don't we? I mean, that I think is a human given. That is our ego. It loves praise. It loves when people say that we are fabulous. Of course, that feels good. But we really want to tap into that higher self so that when people criticize us, we don't fall apart. So that we've always got the opportunity and the ability to, to fuel our value from the inside. So let me know in the chat if that makes sense. This idea of sourcing your value from the outside or from the inside. I'd love to know. And please don't believe that it's either or, like either you're always fueling your self-worth from the inside or either you're always looking to the outside for it. We can go through all of it. Like we all, or most people who are not yet saints, they go from the ego into the highest self and back to the ego and into the highest self. And that is, I think, just also part of human life. Like that is how we are meant to be, or that is how we are. It would be lovely if we were always acting from our higher self, but we aren't really. So what does that look like for you? And have you ever in your life relied heavily on your partner, for instance, to tell you were beautiful, or your parents to tell you were smart, or your teachers to tell you were smart, or somebody to tell you had a beautiful voice or something like that? I think sometimes we go chasing after those compliments. And I certainly used to be a very, very big people pleaser. And I used to rely then on other people to tell me, like as often as possible, that I was the best thing since sliced bread, right? Yeah, it's a flow back, forth and forth feeling. You are right. Yeah. So that is normal. We don't have to beat ourselves up. Like, we don't have to make ourselves wrong for anything. What we want here is just we want to notice. When am I reacting from my ego? And when am I tapped into my higher self? And how can I spend more time with my higher self? Because it's in the higher self, when we are connected to her, when we are tapped in, connected to the highest part, to our full potential, that we can see the more. When we are in our ego mind and focused on our problems, we can't see that. We can't see that we've got a higher purpose. We can't see that we are meant for more, because we are focused on being annoyed about our ex and we want him out of our lives, or we are annoyed with our paycheck because it isn't big enough, or we are annoyed with this or upset about that. And that occupies all our brain space, and it prevents us from tapping in to that place that feels a lot better, where we are not so much focused on the problems, but we are focused on the solutions. So when we're in our highest self, it doesn't mean that we can't see when something is wrong, that we want to change. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that we don't focus on the problem, we focus on the solution. So I had in my 20s appreciated and looked for that recognition, yes. And by your late 20s, recognize that this wasn't having the ultimate self by those remarks, yes. Because I had to believe I was worth it and you could do bigger things, yes. Putting forth the consistency, yes. So good to know. And I think it's normal that we can evolve towards much better with life. Like, as we age, hopefully we're expanding into something much better. But some of us get a little bit stuck, as you were in your 20s, right? And we don't really tap into that higher self. We don't tap into the possibilities, and we keep listening to the ego. That's always telling us you can't do that, and don't get your hopes up, and other people are smarter than you. Other people can do it, you can't. And what if you fail, and all of that, right? So of course, it takes courage sometimes to be living from that higher self, and we're going to talk about that later. It's sometimes a bit uncomfortable, and that really is a perfect segue into normalizing. Normalizing is our second point, and that is what I want you to be aware of, because that is one of our action points. So with your identity, just start noticing when you're in that ego self and when you're actually connected to the higher self. So I believe that from our highest self, we have got access to all our wisdom. And that is where we have been taught, or that's where we've picked up on so much in life that we have not perhaps brought into our consciousness, but it's still there in our subconscious. It's still there somewhere, except we're not aware of it. And I think when we tap into that place, we have got all that information available, and it makes for a much safer place. It makes for a place where we are aware of the sort of hidden things, of the things that are intangible. This is where we know whether somebody's good for us or not. I mean, I don't think I'm the only person who's at some point in my life had a boyfriend who wasn't the best for me. Like, where I chose to sort of not tap into my highest self, where I chose to listen to my ego and have that tell me, you better take him because he's the best one available and there might not be somebody else for you. And so go and stay with him, instead of really listening to that higher self who knew that, this guy is going to hurt you. Get away, right? I think we've all had moments like that. And what I would love for you to do with this workshop is to become aware of it, really. So let's move into normalizing, and welcome to everybody who's joining. So good to have you with us. normalising. Like, let's just look at your life feels normal, right? Everybody who's here, I'm sure you feel that your life is perfectly normal. Imagine if you were a princess. You would find it normal that somebody come and serve you hot chocolate in bed in the morning. That could feel normal to you. But I would consider that a treat. Like, I'm not expecting that. I'm not expecting hot chocolate in bed in the morning. So my normalized life is what I'm currently living, and something different is of course possible, but right now I'm here where this feels normal. So as soon as you open your eyes in the morning, you are confirming your cognitive bias that your life is made up of what it's made up of. All the objects, all your habits, all your thoughts, all your feelings are normal to you. So the glass you drink out of, the mug you have your coffee in the morning, the clothes you put on, the screen you watch or what you watch on your screen, whatever you listen to, whatever you can see, the curtains, your sofa, your kitchen, all that is normal. And it's just confirming really to your subconscious who you are. I'm the kind of woman who. I'm the kind of woman who drinks out of a China coffee cup, for instance, or I'm the kind of woman who has a shower every morning. I'm the kind of woman who feels overwhelmed. I'm the kind of woman who has a difficult life. I'm the kind of woman who has a problem, right? Or I'm the kind of woman who has the perfect job. So just all these examples to tell you that start noticing, well, what have I made normal, really? What is my normal? And then just notice that if you're willing to change some of these things that are normal in your life, that's also an open door into the more. So right now, what is your normal? And I like to think about our feelings and thoughts as being normalized too. Like many of the people who come to me for help, they feel overwhelmed, they feel frustrated, they feel stressed out, and that has become their normal. So when they wake up in the morning, they immediately go there. If you want to change out of being overwhelmed or stressed out, well, then you really have to first, of course, become aware, but then you also have to look into, well, what is it that has me think that, and how can I change it? So our opportunity for growth, for healing, for evolution, for that more is in the moment when we wake up. And in my example, we go into overwhelm. Like our moment for healing that overwhelm is when we start noticing ourselves doing it. And I was just talking with Jessica before we started recording about her dogs, but I believe that animals, they can't see themselves from the outside. Like they're not aware that they are a consciousness. And are they a consciousness? I don't know. But we can observe ourselves from the outside. And that is so super useful because we can notice in the morning when we choose, and I'm putting choose sort of in inverted commas because it has become a habit. The idea of being overwhelmed can become a habit. Just as having a glass of water in the morning is a habit, our feelings and our thoughts become habitual. So our opportunity to interrupt this, to stop it, is to notice it in the morning, in the moment. Our ego, as I said, is very much occupied with the past and bringing the past into the present all the time. In fact, the ego doesn't really enjoy the present because if we're fully present in the present moment, it sort of loses its ground because in the present moment, everything is possible. If we can be fully in the present moment, we are free to make different choices. And that is our opportunity really to choose something different from our habits, or what we can call our old programming. So our opportunity for change, for healing, is in the present moment, where we first have to train ourselves to catch the thought. Or if we take something really tangible, let's say you want to transform your body and you have got the habit of eating a lot of sugar. So in the morning, you reach out for that croissant or that donut. Like, your opportunity for change is to interrupt that gesture. So that's a very tangible way of looking at it. So reaching out for the croissant, you stop yourself. You say, oh, I'm choosing differently in this moment. That's the beginning. And then, of course, there's a lot more to it. But if you just notice that that is our opportunity, really, for change. It's in the present moment. And that's why the ego doesn't want us in the present moment. The ego wants us to be occupied with the to-do list and the multitasking and keeping our minds so busy that nothing new can come in. If we just keep having the same thoughts we had yesterday and the day before, we keep doing the same actions, like the same gestures, we have the same feelings. It's so predictable, and predictable means safe. So the ego is relishing this. It's got us where it wants us. It's safe. Isn't that good to know? And of course, we can be safe if we change our habits. Right? We can, of course, change massively, and that can feel a little bit scary. But fundamentally speaking, we can be safe. So we really have to recognize that present moment and interrupt that pattern we've got going. So our opportunity, I like to call it, our opportunity for growth is in that moment. Now, healing is going a little bit further out, and this is not really the object of this workshop, but the healing comes when we have trained ourselves in the present moment to adopt a different behavior or have a different thought, and that this has become habitual, that this has become our default. Then we have healed. So that is what we are moving towards. And that is where we often need help. So just start noticing is already the first step. So normalizing different things, and I'm going to talk more about that in my tips at the end, but this normalization of different things is an opportunity to start moving towards some more. So let's talk about the more, which was my third point. The more is available, I said, only from your higher self. And it's not as if we are always tapped into our higher self or always into our ego. We go in and out and back and forth. So when we spend more time in our higher self, we get access to many more of our desires. And it's really our desires who inform us of what that more is, of what it is we were meant for. Because I'm sure you'd agree with me, and if not, please let me know in the chat. But if we don't have a desire for something that we don't want to do, I mean, obviously, our desires are always for something we want to be or do or have. So if we say yes to our desires, they will gradually lead us onto what that more is. Except if we keep listening to the ego, it will keep reminding us that we can't have it because we haven't had it in the past. It's always scanning your normal life, your normality, your present life for evidence of the future. And it can't find anything other than what you've already got, what you've normalized. So if we keep listening to that ego, not much else becomes possible. Does that make sense? Thank you. So that's why we have to tap in to that highest version of ourselves who's got access really to much more clear thinking and not being limited by the ego. So, um, if you know me just a little bit, you know that I want to move into a chateau here in France. I already live in France. So you could say I'm on my way. I already live in an old house. So you could say I'm on my way. And there are many other signs that I'm on my way, but I still desire more. Like there's nothing wrong with my life. Everything is gorgeous. I could sit back or lean back and say, okay, this is perfect. But to me, that wouldn't be living into my highest potential because to me, there's always more. And it's not a striving more. It's not, oh, I have to make this happen more. It is, I get to experience this more. So I want to live in a chateau. But, um, I mean, who am I to be living in a chateau? Like, it's not as if my family has got one. I mean, I wasn't born to a chateau. I'm not noble. I mean, there's nothing in my family that tells me that we have lived in a chateau or that I'm somehow entitled to one. And if I listen to my ego, it will tell me, oh, but you're not qualified to live in a chateau. I mean, you're not an architect. How would you know how to take care of old buildings? There are other people who are much more qualified than you to live in a chateau. Maybe you're not able to deal with the problems of living in a chateau. Other people are, you are not. Like I've got that going on, as I'm sure you do too, sometimes more than others. But if we listen to that ego, it will just keep us where we are. So we need to find a way of not to quieten it, because I don't think it will ever go away, but we just have to find a way where we can listen more to that positive um, possibility, higher self, who's also there to inform us that, okay, this might be true, that other people have more qualifications, but this is also true. And that moves me into the what, how, who, and why. Because as I said in the beginning, maybe you know exactly what it is you want to experience here in life. You know exactly what your purpose is. You know that you are meant for more, and you know what that more is. Great. Fantastic. Maybe you don't know. And the reason why you don't know is that you're just not connected enough or often enough to your higher self. And you listen much more to that ego self who's problem focused and not so much to your higher self who's solution focused. So that's why when people come to me and say, well, I just don't know, I don't know what that more is. Okay, so let's first look at your problems and solve them. And once you get into that solving, that positive mindset, that higher self, well, then you can start seeing more of what you're meant for, what your desires are. Well, then people always tell me, yes, but how? And the truth about the how is that we don't know, and nobody knows. There's no coach who can tell you how you will get there. Like my coach can't tell me how I will get to my chateau because she's not me and she's not living in a chateau. I could ask other people, how did you get your chateau? And they would tell me all the ways in which you can get to a chateau. And depending on who they are, they would have done it differently. So when we ask ourselves, how can I do it? Just know that you are asking that how to stay stuck because there is no answer, sadly, to the how. But it really isn't that important because the, the question to be asking is who. But before I go there, let me just sort of finish on the how. The how will be revealed to you because once you take your first step, you will see your next step and then the next step and then the next step. So we really don't have to worry a lot about it. asking to know all the steps before we get started is never going to be productive. So the best question to ask is what and who. So you really just start with whatever speaks to you the loudest to get started. So leave the how to the side and start with who and what. So depending on how tangible you want to make it for yourself, like for ages, I felt like, oh, maybe I'm not quite right because I want more, but my life is brilliant. I mean, I've got an adoring, a brilliant husband. I wouldn't change him for the world. I'm living in my dream house. I've got my dream business. I mean, there's nothing wrong. And yet I want more. And that really took me a lot of time to sort of come to terms with and allow myself to want more. And I just thought, well, what is that more? What is it? And I don't remember what came first, whether it was the chateau or the idea that I love beauty and I really want to cultivate beauty, nurture beauty. But it was like beauty is sort of intangible, isn't it? And a chateau is very tangible. So I think it's really useful to have a little bit of both, like the intangible, the touchy-feely stuff, and then the tangible, like you can point at it and you can touch it with your finger. You can be moved and inspired by both, but moving somewhere without the what is a little bit tricky. So that's why we've got the who. Who do you want to be? And that is very easy for people to tell me. They can tell me who they don't want to be. And from there, we can go on to who they want to be. So they don't want to be this person who is having problems with her ex and she's going into fights with her children and she's not satisfied at work and blah, blah, blah. From there, we can go into, well, then what would you want? Who would you want to be? Who would you prefer to be as you move towards what you really want? And those are all lovely sort of entryways into your more, into your dream, into your purpose. It's looking at who am I being and who do I want to be? And you can use all the normalization that we talked about and we're going to talk about in the tips to move you there. But can I just say that don't expect your sort of purpose to be something you find if you just sit down and meditate for half an hour. I think it's something that you find out moving through all the up levels that are possible for you. So if you keep up leveling, if you keep saying yes to more, if you keep saying yes, 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 and allowing yourself to dream, then this will take you on to the more. And when you get to the more, then there'll be a different more. And I think that's really the purpose of life. Like we reveal to ourselves who we really are, how powerful we are, and what is possible by saying yes all the time and moving towards it. So this just to illustrate that we can start moving towards the more through who we are by wiggling that, or by diving into what we want to experience. So often when we start out with desires and being more conscious of what we desire, we say, oh, I want that necklace I've been dreaming of, or I want to go on holiday, I want to take that vacation in the Bahamas, or I want to buy my mum a new car, or we've got sort of material things we desire. But I think as we move on, it's the material things don't really have the same attraction as the experience. And we get much more experience focused. So I think it's a journey and there really are no shortcuts. We've got everything we need inside. It's already there. We don't need anything from the outside. It's all here. But then we need to become aware of it and normalize it. The reason I'm not yet living in my chateau is because I haven't normalized it. It still doesn't feel normal. So I'm still looking at, oh, how can I bring in more and more from my chateau? How can I be living that experience more and more? How can I be more and more of the chatelaine who lives in the chateau? And all that is a gorgeous journey to be on. Once we leave behind the suffering with our problem-focused ego, once we leave that behind, we're really good. Like, we're really good to go. Like, life is just gets more and more enjoyable, more and more delightful, right? As we're moving on that journey. So it's not really about the end destination. And as I very like, it's perhaps a bit perplexing, but when I say it really doesn't matter if I die tomorrow and I don't get to my chateau, that doesn't really mean anything about me or my life, because in moving towards it, it has allowed me to reveal so much more of whom I can be than if I just settled for who I am now and what I've got. So, of course, this becomes uncomfortable because there's this having to get out of our comfort zone, because we have to leave what is normal behind and dare make other things normal too. So in my life, and I'm in no way saying that this is how you have to do it, I like to leap into a new normal. Like, I do crazy things. So I used to live in London, where I went to music college. And then I got the crazy idea that I wanted to go and live in Paris. And that was moved completely through desire energy, because my life in London was good. Like, I was making a very good living. Life was easy. I had friends, I had a flat, I had work. It was all good. And yet I could feel that desire for more in me. And I'm not saying you have to do this, but to me, I thought, oh, I will get the more by transporting myself over to Paris and starting life in Paris without speaking French, without a job, without a place to live, and all of that. Right? So that is sort of a huge leap that feels extremely uncomfortable. And I think to do that, you really have to know yourself, and you have to be very, very confident that you can take it. So that's really the art of being a coach. It is finding out what makes my clients hugely uncomfortable, so uncomfortable that they go into panic mode and self-sabotage, and yet finding something that is enough uncomfortable to have them grow. So that is something you will have to feel into. What can I do that is a little bit uncomfortable, but not so uncomfortable that I freak out, I implode, I panic, I self-sabotage? That is not useful. But just know that the more uncomfortable you're willing to get, the faster your transformation. So I'm not saying you have to do it fast. What I'm saying is you can decide to do it slowly. And that doesn't mean you won't get there, because it's much better to go slowly but surely than risking sabotaging all of it. So you can start feeling into, well, actually, if I look into this normalising or normality, if I look into that and I start wiggling it a little bit, like if you're somebody who has got very few expectations of comfort in life or luxury, you could start feeling into, well, actually, I've got a coffee mug that is a little bit chipped. What if I got one that I really loved? One that was of thin porcelain, really fragile, but exquisite looking, right? You can do those little things and build them up. If you're not used to eating very healthily, you can ask yourself, I would usually choose this because it is the cheapest. What if I got the slightly better, healthier version of this, and I had that instead? So these little things, you can go very, very gradually. If you don't like speaking up, if you like to sort of not be noticed. You can start playing with, well, what actually if I said my opinion here instead of just being silent? What if I actually said what I thought? Sort of playing around with all these little things, always making sure that you have got your own back, in the sense that you know how to regulate your emotions. Because what happens if we are not emotionally regulated is that we can freak out and it can feel horrible. And we don't really want our life experience to be a series of opportunities for feeling really, really horrible. So before attempting anything like widely out of your comfort zone, make sure you really know how to self-regulate, that you've got some really, really useful tools for how to be with yourself and your emotion. So to me, that is really having your own back. And the great advantage here is that when you have got your own back emotionally, your nervous system can calm down. And that is really what we want it to do at all times. So you can take the action from a calm nervous system, knowing that you can face whatever consequence. So you don't start speaking up before you are ready to face the consequences. And by the consequences, it's often just feeling a feeling that you're not used to feeling and that you don't want to feel. So please always be aware, okay, I'm willing to take the risk, but what could the consequences of this risk be? And before taking any action, feel into that. Am I willing to bear the consequences here or not? If not, revise. Don't take any action. So that was, oh, I didn't talk about the why, but think about, oh, who will I want to become to move into my bigger purpose, into what I'm meant to? And you can start saying things like, oh, I want to be the kind of woman who speaks up for herself. I want to be the kind of person who can initiate a conversation. I want to be the kind of person who can lead a team. I want to be the kind of person who can confidently ask for a pay rise or whatever. Find out where that lands for you. And there is no right and there is no wrong. Feel free to play around with it. So that's a who. The what, I really recommend that you feel into your desires and go really all out on them. And that can't be done in, as I said, half an hour of meditation. It really takes time. Just know that whatever you want to move towards, you will meet with failure. And sometimes we don't take action because we are afraid to fail. But really, you have to come to terms with failure. You have to normalize failure. You have to be that kind of person who's connected to her highest self, so that when she fails, she can say, oh, you completely screwed this up. You messed this up so badly. And still I love you. And still you're worthy. And still you've got value. And still you can have it. So if you look at failure or uncertainty with apprehension, that would be the first thing to tackle. So if I can sum up what I've said so far before I go into the tips, it is you have to be emotionally regulated to take steps toward what it is you're meant for, who you want to be, what you want to experience in life. Because if you're not able to regulate your emotions, you will self-sabotage. So your ego will hold you back because it feels that holding you back is safe. It wants you to stay alive. So it's going to hold you back by pulling up a lot of evidence from your past of why you can't have this or be that. It's also going to pull up all the statistics of all the people who failed, of all the reasons why you can't do this and why this hasn't been done by somebody like you, and all of it. So you can choose to listen to it, or you can also listen to your highest self and spend more time with her. And that is really what I talked about when I said about my chateau. I could listen to my ego self who says, oh, other people are more qualified than you to live in a chateau. I could listen to that, but I can also take it as a growth point and transform it into I care. I care so deeply for old buildings. I care so deeply for history. I care so deeply for beauty that for my chateau, I could very well be the best person to take care of it. Even better than an architect, even better than an interior designer, even better than whatever I can come up with. So that is my growth point. It is to silence that ego thought and tell it, you got this wrong. This is how we're going to think now. And once I've got that thought, I just keep practice thinking it. Like it's what I talked about again in the moment. If I go to, you can't have that, I have to catch myself and stop, interrupt. And I have to go into, oh, here's why I can. I care. So, I mean, I haven't really stopped for questions. I'm so sorry if I've just been plodding on. Yes, it's always been inside us. Yes, Jessica, when we cut out the noise. Amen, says Leanne. Yes. So good. The change is so scary. But that is when growth happens for sure. Brilliant. Patricia took a leap last fall. Okay. It's never too late, Patricia. Right. Congratulations for taking a leap. I've taken leaps and have failed miserably. I'm still here to talk about it, right? On my way to my chateau, I will take more leaps and I shall fail miserably. I'm okay with that. It doesn't mean anything about me. If you never fail, you're not attempting big enough. That's it. I can completely love myself through failure because I so appreciate that I'm willing to attempt. Attempt imperfectly, fail. Yeah, but Katrina, you did it. You attempted. And that to me is worth millions. So let me talk about the tips I want to share with you, and feel free to share any of your attempts or any, if you've got, yeah, you're welcome, Kathleen. If you've got any things that you practice for yourself that help you up level or emotionally regulate or whatever it is for you. I've done a lot of workshops on emotions and how to process emotions, so I'm not going to talk about that, but I am going to talk about mirror work. That is my first tip, mirror work. You can change your self-concept by creating a different relationship with yourself. And the best opportunity for this is to look yourself in the eyes in the mirror. It doesn't need to take 10 hours. Doesn't need to take 10 minutes even. It could be 1 minute of looking yourself into the eyes in the mirror and really connecting. So you're not sort of watching your hairstyle or your makeup or your wrinkles. That's not the point. You're looking at yourself in the eyes and you're looking at that person. And then you start a conversation with her. And I like for that conversation to be, if you can say that, benevolent. Or maybe it's my French playing in here, but it's really about saying something positive that is true. And I find that positive feedback has got more power if it's specific. Telling somebody, oh, you're so great, doesn't really land, does it? How am I great? I don't know. Doesn't really land. So if you make it really specific And if you don't like how you look, you don't have to comment on how you look. You can say something like, Katrina, I think you're such a kind person. I really appreciate how you helped that elderly lady in the supermarket yesterday. I thought that was really thoughtful. I'm so glad you did it. I'm so proud of you. I appreciate that. And then you say something you really mean, and you start having that relationship. So you can also go to the mirror and say, look, Katrina, that really wasn't the best thing you ever did. I think next time this situation happens, you want to do it differently. How can we do it differently? So you start having that relationship with yourself. And obviously, you want to tap into your higher self most of the time. I mean, every time it's possible. And so when we mess things up and when we are not being at our best, we can still love ourselves. So it's not about performing up to standards all the time. It's really not about performing at all. It's about being our real selves, even when that is not ideal. Yes, I agree, Jessica. Recognition of good and bad really helps you grow. Yes, yes. And we really don't have to make it mean anything about us. If we fail once, it doesn't mean we will fail next time. If we were not at our best and we shouted at our children or something like that, or at our dogs, it doesn't mean anything about us. So if we did something we regret doing, we can say, look, I'm really not proud of what you did yesterday, but I can see how it happened. This is what happened, and I can see why. So next time, here's what we'll do. And so next time, you're already prepping your mind for next time. You're prepping your mind for interrupting next time. And start practicing that new behavior, that new habit. And one of the big things I did, and that was really when I was a school teacher and all these little children taught me so much, I decided that I was always going to put the most positive interpretation on all people's actions. So unless proven otherwise, I was going to put a positive interpretation on whatever they told me. And if it didn't fit in with positive, I would say, so there's something I'm not understanding. I must ask questions because I really don't understand. And when I had that open attitude, I really saw that the children could tell me anything. They were no longer afraid to hurt me because they couldn't, because I was always expecting something positive. So when they were acting up, and you, goodness knows that teenagers, they've got hormones coursing through their bodies, so they're rarely normal, right? So everything they threw at me, I could just take it. And I thought, oh, it's his hormone speaking now. Like, I wonder what's going on for him. And then I could get curious. And that was one of my growth points. Like, instead of being offended by a teenager saying something to my face, instead of taking it to mean something about me, I switched that to taking it to mean something about his emotional state. And when I got curious about that, well, first of all, I could just prove to myself that it really had nothing to do with me. I just happened to be in front of him or her at that time, at that moment. And I was a very good venting opportunity. So separating myself from that just made so much more possible. Right? That was really an opportunity for me to heal the fear of criticism, to heal the fear of not being perfect. I did a lot of healing, like forced healing, and it wasn't always pretty and it wasn't always enjoyable. I mean, it was rarely enjoyable, but it really just gave me so many opportunities of revising a lot of my defaults of how I would react to what people said, react to what happened, and all of that. So Thank you to all those kiddos. So that was mirror work. Another tip I want to give you is, we already talked a little bit about it, to start consciously normalizing something different. And you can do this very, very powerfully. You can change the way you dress. You can change how you look at yourself and your body. I find that dress is such a powerful signal to ourselves. I mean, we say, oh, I don't want to dress up for people. But just looking at, well, what is dressed up to me? What does that look like? What does that mean to me? Do I want to up-level that? And if so, what does that look like? And then start doing it. I meet up with a lot of people who come to my consultations, and many of them do not take care of themselves. And I think this is the first place to start, because if you dress in a way that doesn't flatter you, if you wear old, worn out clothes that you don't look good in, if you've got greasy hair on a everyday basis, that is a huge renormalizing opportunity, because whatever we wear, however we dress, is a signal to ourselves. And you can say that I'm elitist, I don't mind. I think it matters. I really do. How we show up to ourselves is so important. I don't care about how we show up to other people or how we dress. We don't dress for other people, we dress for ourselves first and foremost. So that's a huge up-leveling, renormalizing opportunity. What you eat, how you treat your body, all of that. Look into that. Self-care, pampering, all of that. That is a great opportunity. But, and we're running out of time, my third tip is slow down. You can't multitask your way to your purpose. You really can't. Yes, I love dressing up to feel confident. Yes. Walk into a room feeling successful from the start. Brilliant. Me too. Just feeling confident about how you look so you don't have to think about it, I think. And I don't think you can be overdressed. That is just out of my awareness. I can't be overdressed for anything. How I dress is how I want to feel, and that's it, really. But moving on to the slowing down. Any personal development, any change in habits, emotional habits, tangible habits, anything you want to change can only be done so from peace and quiet. It can't be done when you're stressed out. You've got a to-do list and you're flogging yourself into action all the time. I'm sorry, it can't. Something has to go. For one, I have left. If I want to do some ironing, I do my ironing wholeheartedly. If I want to listen to a podcast, I listen to a podcast. If I want to go for a walk, I go for a walk. That is where I've got my greatest value. Not dividing my attention. And I think all of this we've been talking about, your higher self, what you're meant for, how to live from your higher self, is only accessible from the slowing down. I know we've got a few people from the States here, and I know that you live in that hustle culture where you are sort of pressurized into doing more and doing more and doing more. And I think we are a little bit in Europe too, but really, I would invite you to question that. Take charge of it, because sometimes less is more, isn't it? And when we do something with focus, not only does it become enjoyable, it also becomes more efficient. But just think of it, when you have a shower and you're listening to a podcast, your mind is occupied and nothing new can get in there. If you take a shower in silence, You're opening your mind to something new. If you're going for a walk without listening to a podcast, your mind is available for your imagination. If your mind is occupied with learning something, it's not. And so I so appreciate that you're here and you're on video and you're like participating fully. I think that speaks volumes of your desire, really, your desire to go all in. So kudos to you. I love it. So slowing down is my third tip. First tip, mirror work. Develop that relationship with yourself. Second tip is to up level or normalize something different, something you want more of. Third tip is to slow down. Every time you tell yourself, oh, I can't do that. And goodness knows I talk to a lot of people who tell me, oh, but you don't understand. I've got 3 children. I can't slow down. You're telling me I can't change my life. I'm forced to be living this. You must slow down. And of course, we can take a look at what that would look like. So that is really what I wanted to share with you. And if you've got any comments or questions, I am completely available. But I also wanted to let you know that I would love to be of support to you moving on. So let me just explain to you. I'm posting a link in the chat where you can go ahead and book yourself in for a free consultation, which I call a life audit session. This is where we go into your life to look at what you want to change specifically in each area of your life so that I get a good idea of where it is you are and where it is you want to be. You're welcome, Kathleen. So we do that so that I can let you know what I can see from the outside, and I can let you know what points I think would be of value to you if you want to really change, to move towards more of who you really are, your fullest expression, and what you're meant to be and do. So it's a 1 hour consultation and we go deep. So it's really good to be in an environment where you can be yourself, like where you can spill the beans. We can be real with each other. We can have a real deep conversation together. And if I can see that I can be helpful to you in supporting you through one of my coaching packages, I will let you know. But booking a conversation doesn't oblige you to buy anything from me. I just want that to be perfectly clear. But I will let you know if you're okay with that. So what I do with my clients is that we first of all get out of that problem-focused mindset where we see problems and not solutions. So that would be the first point, starting point. And then I teach them emotional regulation because that is really a life skill that we haven't been taught, have we? We didn't learn that at school. We didn't learn that in our families, probably, or some did. I mean, kudos to them, but I didn't. So I just grew up being afraid of all my emotions. So I just stuffed them down. And I find that many people do that. So that is where we start. And then we start looking into how we can connect more and more often with that higher self, because that higher self has got the whole path, knows the path to what it is we really want to experience in life. And when we connect to her, I believe we get access to that intuition of ours, like all the information we've stocked all through life, like everything we've picked up. This all gets condensed into useful hints and tips from our higher self. And we want to tap into that so that we can use that information to get us to where it is we want to go. And once we find out how we can be connected to her most of the time, life is already pretty amazing. And then there's more. That is when we start defining the dream and when we start moving into the dream so that I can support you all the way there. Because there will be failure, like there will be freak out points. Let's be realistic. And that is normal. It really is. But it's so much easier to get there when you have got somebody to support you. Like I've got a life coach. She's there to witness my journey. I appreciate her so much. I'm just starting with a new coach because my other coach is on maternity leave. So I just found a new coach, and it is so good to know that I'm fully supported all of the time. I'm not doing this on my own, and you don't have to either. You really don't. So if it appeals to you, having my support or looking into what it could look like, please go ahead and book yourself a session. It's free. I don't know whether I said that, but it's completely free, and it comes without any strings attached. So you're welcome, Jessica. Leanne, you are welcome. I remember you. I want to have news of you and your qualifications. But anyway, I shall stop the recording. And if you're still here, I would love for you to get into the vibe of sitting around with me in my boudoir and sharing my photo album of the chateau I've got my eyes on. Thank you for being here till the end. Thank you for listening, everybody on the replay. I appreciate you being here. Go ahead. I'm going to post the link to a live audit session with me somewhere around this video. If you're on my emailing list, it will be emailed to you and it will be in your inbox. Thank you very much for joining. And I shall talk to you soon. Bye for now.